What's going on, everybody? Here are my top 5 wide receiver prospects from the 2023 NFL Draft. There's only one wide receiver who I consider a slam dunk in this draft class, and that's Jackson Smith-Njigba. He just knows how to get open. He's a very good route runner, and I totally get that he ran most of his routes from the slot, but he had his opportunities against man coverage, against press coverage, and he did his thing. And he led the nation with 4.26 yards per route run against man coverage, so I wouldn't call him a guy who's just limited to the slot. He can make contested catches. He has some serious yards after the catch ability as well. And on a per target basis, he had more plays go over 15 yards than any other wide receiver in this class. He had the highest yards per route run over his career among all of these prospects this year. And in 2021, he had the highest yards per route run among all qualifying Power 5 receivers. You got to remember, this dude outplayed both Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in their 2021 season at Ohio State together. And these two guys are now bona fide young studs in the NFL. And by the way, both of those guys did say that Jason might be the best of the three. We're going to find out if that's true pretty soon. It took a while for me to get around, but Zay Flowers is my number 2 wide receiver in this class. I wanted to write him off because of his size at 5'9", 182, but when you watch this guy play, he has it. He is a legit route runner. He didn't really play on a good offense. His offensive coordinator just got fired, but he still managed to rack up 78 catches, 1,100 yards, and 12 touchdowns. He was the entire offense. He had the best career dominator rating among all the wide receivers in this draft class. He had the best single-year dominator rating among all the wide receivers in this class. If you didn't know, your dominator rating is the percentage of your team's offensive output that you account for. Flowers himself accounted for 47% of his team's offensive output. Almost half of the entire offense was Zay Flowers. Now, looking at his reception perception profile, he's very good against man coverage. He's pretty good in press coverage despite his size, so he might not be limited to the slot. He could play a flanker type role similar to what Devontae Smith does in the NFL. He's also very good after the catch, and that 4.42 speed becomes very apparent when he has the ball in his hands. Now, it looks like he's shaping up to be a round 1 wide receiver. That's the most important thing when it comes to projecting at the next level. He broke out at 20 years old. His breakout age is basically whenever he hit the 20% dominator rating or higher, and that's solid. Now, he is a little bit older than the other round 1 and round 2 wide receivers that are coming out at 23 years old, but as long as he gets that round 1 draft capital, I think a team can use him as a slot, as a flanker, and I think he can have success right away at the next level. I have Jordan Addison out of USC at number 3. Now, Addison broke out at 18 years old at Pitt before he transferred to USC. And at Pitt in 2021, he had a 100 catch, 1,600 yard, 17 touchdown season. And among more than 100 qualifying Power 5 wide receivers, each of the last 2 years, he was top 10 in yards per route run, and that was with 2 different teams. And among all the wide receivers in this draft class, he had the highest career yards per team pass attempt. So that tells you when they threw the ball, he was the guy. And he's up there with guys like Quentin Johnston in terms of big playability. More than 25% of his targets resulted in a 15 or more yard receiving play. And this dude can separate. He's a good route runner. He plays the middle of the field very well. And it doesn't really matter where he plays. He can play inside, outside. He can make it happen. According to his reception perception profile, he's pretty good against man coverage, pretty good against zone coverage. He struggles a little bit against press coverage, but as long as coaches allow him to play off the line for the most part, we shouldn't have to worry about it. Now, there are a lot of smaller wide receivers in this draft class, but these are good route runners, and I think the NFL is starting to support this type of wide receiver more and more. And I mentioned guys who can play out of the slot as flankers, and I think Addison can do a lot of that as well. Now, it looks like he's going to be drafted in the first round. You combine that with his breakout age of 18, the numbers show that when you combine those 2 metrics, that he's probably going to be a top 24 wide receiver at the very least, with room to grow. All right, I have UNC's Josh Downs as my number 4 wide receiver in this draft class. Now, we'll see where he gets drafted, either late first, early second. Draft capital means everything when it comes to evaluating these wide receivers, but I just think that he's going to be a very good wide receiver at the next level, and I think he can get targets thrown his way as soon as he steps on the field. Now, my assumption with Josh Downs is that he's going to continue to play the slot just like he did at UNC, but he's able to make some plays downfield, similar to how I viewed Elijah Moore coming out 2 years ago. Now, I will say that on a per target basis, he wasn't breaking as many longer plays as a lot of these other wide receivers were, but man, like his double moves, like when I'm watching him, some of the prettiest I've seen while evaluating all of these wide receivers. Again, this year is the year of the smaller wide receiver, but this dude, he's one of the best contested catch players in the country. Last year, he caught 13 of 18 contested targets. That's a 72% 42.2% rate, which was the single highest among all qualifying power wide receivers who had more than 100 targets last year. And he's doing that at 5'9", 170. He broke out at 20 years old, solid, but he went straight to a 35% dominator rating, and he had 2 straight 1,000-yard seasons at North Carolina. And among all of this year's wide receiver prospects, he had the best single-year yards per team pass attempt, which kind of tells you what you need to know if a team doesn't pass the ball a whole lot. It kind of levels the playing field a little bit. So when the team was passing the ball, he was getting those targets. At number 5, I have TCU wide receiver Quentin Johnston, and I totally understand this might seem a little bit low to a lot of people. He might get that first round draft capital, and it is tempting to put him higher because you look at his size, 6'3", 208. He's able to make plays down the field. He's also a very good after the catch player at his size, and being able to also make plays downfield, that's a rare combination. The concern around Johnston is his hands and his contested catch ability. The thing about Johnston is that he's had some amazing contested catches in his career, so it looks like he's a good contested catch player, but he's only caught 34.7% of those contested catches, which is not good. And also, when you look at the percentage of his targets that was a contested target, he's on a list of not so great players among the wide receivers who were drafted in rounds 1 through 4 in the past. A related concern is that a high percentage of his targets was contested, which means A, his quarterback stinks, and or B, he's not getting enough separation on those targets. His reception perception profile had some further concerns overall about him at the catch point, and in addition, he didn't really run a full route tree at TCU. But with the routes that he did run, he was killing it against man coverage. It seems like Johnston will be drafted in the first round, so that alone makes him worth investing in for fantasy purposes. Now, he never went over a 30% dominator rating in his career at TCU, but when his team passed the ball, he was the guy. He had the second highest career yards per team pass attempt among all the prospects in this draft class. Now, all that being said, still probably getting that first round draft capital. He has the size, he can win downfield and make big plays. The after the catch ability is there as well, so he's still a good prospect.